This is a production of Cornell University.
The library's liaison to cooperative extension, so I do a lot of work with extension educators around the state, basically trying to help them find the information they need to do their jobs. And what I think I might do just briefly is just show you an online guide that I've created. It's sort of I think it's, I think I still call it a portal, but the term portal is like, it sounds like 1995 or something. I mean, it's a little, but the idea is that it's an online resource that's easy to get to, that sort of collects together a lot of the resources that are available to extension folks through Cornell and through the library and through me. So I think what I might try to do is share my screen just to show that briefly, give you a kind of a quick overview of it, and then I'll just open it up to questions and conversation. So here's the portal, which is pretty easy to find. It's just the URL is up here, guys.library.cornell.edu_CCE /CCE_portal. You can also do Cornell Cooperative Extension Mann Library, and I think just Google it, and it'll come up. And I won't go into too much detail here. Some of you actually may be familiar with this already. But what I tried to do here is collect all the resources and services that extension staff have access to, both the online resources, which, I think most everyone in cooperative extension, unless you're really new, you understand that you are considered a full Cornell staff member in terms of access to the Cornell resources. So there are a lot of electronic resources that Cornell provide, pays a subscription to, and you can get access to if you're current Cornell faculty, staff, or student. So that includes all cooperative extension staff members with a net ID. So just again, it kind of goes through what you can do in terms of finding books and journals. A lot of these resources are available online. The other thing to remember, for what it's worth, is if you search the Cornell Library online catalog and find books that are in print, we still have a lot of really high quality resources that are available in print. If you find those using our catalog and they're here at Mann Library, you can actually order those and have them delivered through the mail for free. So it's not just the electronic resources, but they're the print resources, the books that we have. If you need that, and it's not readily available in your local library, that is an option. And so I think that is overviewed. And there's a further explanation in the document delivery section right here. There's a link here under library services, so I won't go into too much detail about that. And the final section there's a lot of information here. So when you have some time, just go through it. I think, ultimately, let me go switch back here. So I'm kind of going back and forth. This link, my picture here with my link, actually, if you click on it, you can send me an email. So I think if all else fails, or even from the beginning, you're like, I just need help finding information for this grant I'm putting together, or this program I'm putting together, or I need to do evidence-based programming. That seems to be a big one. Send me an email, and I'll either know the resource or the answer, or I'll be able to help you find it. And I'm going to, so that's just on the first page here. It's JPK15. It's not some great secret or anything. And then under tutorials here at the very end, this is where I put together this top 10 things every cooperative extension staff member should know about the library. And this is something I do in person for new extension staff when they come, those who come to campus. I'll do this in person and kind of go through it. I think for the interest of time, I won't. What I will tell you is that each one of these is a link to a variety of resources that these aren't everything you have available, obviously. It's just a scratching the surface, but I think there's some of the more important ones to know from the beginning, including my email right there. I've also put some guides here, which can be useful, very specifically focused guides. Some of them I've created, some of them my colleagues have created. One of them is this finding funding, and this seems to be in terms of the training, the webinars, the outreach I've done to cooperative extension staff in the last couple of years. The funding piece, not surprisingly, seems to be one of great interest. And so I'll just click on this link here, and I've just recently, let me see if this, so I've recently just updated this to include crowdfunding sources of information, which is a relatively new phenomena, but it's a way of basically passing the hat virtually online. And the Cornell Library has some electronic books that you don't have to check them out. You don't have to order them from the library. You can actually just log on and read Crowdfunding for Dummies. So that's another source. Traditionally, I've focused on New York State, U.S. federal, and private philanthropic sources of funding. And I do webinars on the Foundation Directory, which is the primary index to private and corporate funders, the ones with, you think Gates, you think Rockefeller, the big funding, the big sources of and actually the smaller local foundations, which can have money as well. So the Foundation Directory is the most important source for that sort of information. And so that link is there. That's a subscription database, so it's not freely available. Everyone in Cooperative Extension does have access to it. It's not that hard to learn, and there's some online tutorials. And actually, I think in 2012, I think I gave one of these webinars, and I recorded it. So it's like 30 minutes, and I walk through it. I can't guarantee that it's the most professionally done thing, but it gives you the basic sense of what it does. And of course, if you start to use it and have questions, let me know.
Jim, hi, this is Jen. I was in a program leadership development cohort, and you kind of did a sit down with us and helped us look through the Foundation's directory and set up alerts.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I think that a lot of us are now spending a good chunk of time either searching for funding, writing grants, or administering those grants. So I think I can speak for myself that a little bit less time now on programming and a little more time on finding funding. But then you brought up a great point, is that now as we are engaging in this funding, it is really important to be able to find things like evidence-based practices and that kind of support material for the grant writing that you're doing. So I don't even know where to begin with that.
Right. Right. I know it's you need the grant funding to do the programming, and then you need to be able to have a plan with evidence of your program to get the fund. So it's almost this catch-22. Like, where do you start? Do you look for and you have to do them both. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Foundation Directory and those other sources are really great to know about. They exist, and in terms of doing the evidence-based and finding the evidence, I certainly can help folks with that as well. It's not easy. I mean, the research, I try to tell Cornell undergraduates this, and I'm not sure, it might go in one ear and out the other, but the research process takes time to do it well, to actually find things. It gets better the more you do it, but finding that evidence it's not just like you type it into Google and the top 3 hits are exactly what you need to support what you're doing. But it does get easier, and I can certainly help with that process and maybe save you some time too.
Okay. I think, and also since we are working along, within our mission, within our priority areas, that sometimes you start to build a a kind of a system of knowledge or a bunch of ideas of practices and be able to follow those down there, to try to build what am I trying to say? Almost a library of ideas that you have now drawing from for grant funding and writing those grants. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's there is an opportunity and a challenge here to tap into the collective experience of all the cooperative extension educators across the state or even beyond, about how is it you successfully go about, in terms of, specifically in terms of the funding, how is it that you do that? And sometimes one of the things you can do, and I think I probably showed you guys this for your leadership cohort, you can go into the foundation directory and find what other county cooperative extension agencies, what grants they've gotten and for what. But there is a possibility for this collective, like you said, a library of knowledge about how to do this well.
Or even relevant, papers that really speak to what we do, and because there's so many, there's so much out there.
Right.
How do you find, it's a
right. No, it's a huge thing, and they're actually they're now. It's so important. I know here at Cornell. I mean, I'm not really knowledgeable about the whole the scholarship behind like evidence-based methodologies, but they're now offering, I think in the College of Human Ecology, they're offering a minor in evidence-based research. So it's, it's like, so it's, it's something that is obviously being, it's being considered really more seriously at that level.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had recently had kind of funding questions from partners we work with, and they're coming down kind of above from their funders saying, we don't really want to follow through with this project if there isn't an evidence-based practice. And they're not just talking about something that was just research. They are looking for something kind of like a cookie-cutter program that has been instituted somewhere, has got good research behind it and the good evidence that it worked, that kind of right. So it's a different meaning than evidence-based I thought, so.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And the other thing, I'm outside the loop on this, but it also just seems that what works in terms of an evidence-based programming for say a 4-H program in Utah isn't necessarily going to work for the same 4-H program in Onondaga County in New York. I mean, there's all manner. The notion of a cookie cutter and it's an ambitious idea, certainly.
Yeah, and conversely, it's kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you have a promising practice, something that looks like, hey, there's a lot of good research behind these ideas, let's try it out, but because it doesn't have some evidence-based template to follow, it's like, no, that's not going to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do this all the time with my teaching. That I work with faculty in the two colleges, CALS and Human Ecology, and it's like we're being asked, the library and the librarians are being asked to do more assessment of what we do, to actually assess how effective they are. And for me, when the faculty member says, if I talk to the faculty member after the class and they say, that's great, that really worked well. I mean, I think I can see it was really useful to the students. For me, that's a really that's a primary piece of assessment of what I did. That's not a rubric. It's not something I can put in Excel and show somebody and say, 85% of the students who took my workshop did, significantly better on their final exam. That's not the level, But for me, that more qualitative assessment of the word of mouth from the faculty member is all I need. Thankfully, my funding is not based on needing to get those numbers, But I
Right.
think, and a lot of time, if people are giving you money, they want the numbers.
They do. They want to be able to report back and say,
Right, and
this is
say,
what we
yep,
did with
so
the
everybody
money.
can check off their little box.
Yes. That's a strange, yeah.
Yeah.
Not necessarily useful. I mean, I understand where it has to do, but in the real world, that
Right,
getting to people is what we're after, right?
Right.
If other people are also spending time gathering research to support their work, is there a way we can share that in some forum, or is it already being done?
No,
how could we do?
Right. There, the sharing, what you're basically doing is sharing published research on this topic. Basically journal articles. Is that what key research findings? Is that the?
Yep. So that will be
Okay. So what? What I would recommend, and I've worked with a number of other either lab groups or groups on campus to do this. What you can do is you can start, and if you had a group, you don't even have to be in the same office. You don't even have. You can do this online. There's a program called Zotero. It's a free online program, Zotero.org. And I can pull. Let me actually see. Let me see if I can show you an example. Cornell. What's the? Well, actually, there's one. There's. Oh, not survey researchers. That's so funny. System of rice intensification. Okay. So this is through CFAD and international programs. But what they actually have done is, and I've helped them do this, they put together this online database of research. So this is not to get into too much detail, but the system of rice intensification is a system of increasing the yields of rice. It's fairly controversial, and one of the things this group wanted to do was show the evidence, speaking of evidence, from published research on the effectiveness of this system of growing rice called SRI, or System of Rice Intensification. So what they did, and I'll actually just do a search for rice because, so this is Zotero, and what they've done is they've put together this online library and there are probably 2 or 3 people in the group who are administrators who oversee this and add material to the library, and then it's completely open to anybody in the world. And what it's not the world's greatest interface, but it's very logical that you can organize these. The library is organized into some subfolders, and then each one of these is the link to an article. Depending on how you want to do it, you can include the full text of the article as well. And there's no limit in terms of the number of people who can be in this group. So it works. It takes a little bit to learn the program, but I think for the kind of program you're talking about, this could be a very effective solution. And if you want to explore it, I'm happy to help you get going with that.
Thanks. That is helpful. And so, is this a good way if somebody's trying to research a topic to sort of gather, their effort?
Yeah, exactly. So what you could do is, if there are, what I possibly could imagine, if there's a core group of you in your group who are doing the research on, a particular topic within your field, and you wanted to produce collaboratively this database and share it among yourselves, and then also with the general public, that's exactly what you could do. So the program. Let me actually open up. So what you do is you have the program on your individual computer, and I'll slide this over here. So it's a desktop program. Let me slide this over here. And you work on your own computer, and you would do your research in whatever database you like. So this is my desktop version of Zotero. And I've got these folders here. And if I scroll down here, when I get into this section here, these are the group libraries. So the other nice thing about this is I can have my individual research that I collect here. This is only for me. And then under here, I have these group libraries that you could share. So if there are, say, 4 or 5 or 6 of you, there's no limit on the number, but if there were 4 of you who wanted to create a group library, I could add, I could do my own research on this. Here's the group on bees. And if I did my own research and imported these references, I went and did it, I would add them to the library here, and then the program, you can see this little arrow is circling over here. What it's doing is it's syncing with the cloud. So what would happen is this bee group online, which is what everyone could access, would be a place where people could then go and see the results. But so it works. These group libraries work very well for collaboration between people, and then also sharing that. You can keep it private if you wanted to, and just share it among your small group. But it sounds like you might also want to make this open to the public. Not that they could add or edit it, but they could see it and they could download the program. It's actually and you don't need to have the program installed or even know how it works to be able to go in and see the results of these. This is the online version. This is the desktop version.
So one of the questions we often have is our gardening topic area can sort of go in all sorts of directions. Is there people who could, guide us on how to sort of organize do we have one big folder, or is there a structural way that seems to work better than others?
So in terms of you're collecting all the research?
Yeah, because we could be in lots of different fields. Bees is a common, pollinators in general is a common topic, and then we can go to a different area where, as Jen was suggesting, childhood obesity and growing vegetables.
Right. I was going to say I can tell you what the program can do here. So, for example, in this Cornell Conservation Agriculture, the Cornell Conservation Agriculture is another example of one of these working live databases from a CALS program. So they create a master library called Cornell Conservation Agriculture, and then within that they've created all these subfolders and it can range on anything. And you can actually, so if I look at this level, if I highlight Cornell Conservation Agriculture, I'm looking at everything in the library, which is probably at this point thousands of citations. And then if I click on one of these, like if I click under cassava, I'm only looking at the citations that have been stored in cassava. So you can create all these subfolders, and then you can actually put a particular citation. So this is a journal article right here. This reference could be in more than one of these folders. So you could have as many of these subfolders as you wanted to. Everybody is tempted to have a folder called miscellaneous, which I think is dangerous, because it's like, I don't know where, but let's put it in miscellaneous, and then it just ends up being. So anyway, the tools for organizing it are there. I would love to be, but I am not personally a particularly organized person, so I'm not sure how that best works. It's probably something for your group to hash out how this might work. But I think Zotero in itself kind of gives you the ability to, at a certain level, to be fairly organized about it. And then just let me actually see. So here's the system of rice intensification. And again, this is on my desktop. What I'm showing you right now, this is the desktop program. But here's the master folder, and then here are all the subfolders, and everything's doing. And then if I go back here, there's so this is the online view. This is sort of the shared view that everyone sees. This is exactly the same thing. So here's the master library, and then here are the subfolders that have everything there. And again, you can choose to make this include the full text of the article. If you do that, you can't make it, for copyright reasons, obviously, you can't make the folder a fully public one. You would need to make a public view would not include the full text. So that's a small consideration,
Okay.
But I have a question about that, Jim. Then would people be able to, like people who are in the folder, be able to print those out, or would they just use them as a reference and then go find? Or,
yeah, no, they could.
Yeah.
They could. If they wanted to. If they
I'm
wanted
still,
to take
yeah.
these, if you had the Zotero program, you could join the group. That's the other
Right.
thing is you could make it so that people could join the group and download this into their own folder. But a lot of times people are just they don't want to be bothered with that. So you can see here, I'm pretty sure if I marked all these records, I could then export them. And here are different options. Let me actually, that may not be the best. That's actually exporting it in a format. Let me see if there is a way to, I think there should be just a way to print them out if you wanted to, or, or email them to yourself. I'll have to look into that. But there's definitely, oh, this is interesting. Oh, okay. Huh. So you can, if nothing else, if you wanted to, you could do this quick. You could select a style, like APA style, and then do a, oops, if I did, oh, okay. I could just copy them all and paste them into my, like a Word document or something like that. But there has to be an email function here somewhere. I'll have to look into that. So yeah, people could print them out. People could email them. They should be able to email themselves and then go and find them. If they're in the Cornell network, it's pretty easy to do it. Sometimes like in this case, this is a publicly available PDF, so they could just, well,
Oops.
doesn't always work the way you plan it to. Yeah, so
right.
URLs change.
But a lot of this stuff is available, right, through Mann Library portal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's really cool. Yeah. I could see that being helpful to a lot of educators if that was essentially it's kind of curated by our needs. We
right.
and each other we figure it out. But then as we come across these things, they could get added. Not that we have another moment of time to do
right. I know exactly.
thing.
But if you're doing this anyway, it will actually save you a lot of time because all you would then need to do is, and the nice thing is you can go into your database of choice, like Scholar. Like if I went into Google Scholar and I did, I'll say community gardening or something like that. I don't know. Be helpful if I spelled it right. But then the nice thing about the program is, so I'm in Chrome on a Windows-based computer, and I've got Zotero installed, and there's this little folder here. So I click on this, and then I can just grab all of those citations and where they'll end up. I'm not going to bring them in right now, but where they'll end up is in here. So, and then I dump them there, and then so all I need to do is go to my database, do my search. These are probably things you're doing already as part of your workflow. Click the import, which is just clicking a button. Point it. You can either, if you've got the folder highlighted, when you do the import, it'll just dump them right in there. And then when this thing syncs, which it will do automatically, so those records I brought in from Google Scholar will then end up in my online library here, automatically shared. So, if you're just doing a lot of these things anyway, in terms of curating and collecting the references, it would, once you learn the program and get it installed and figured out the particularities of doing the shared management of this, you're not really, you're really not adding much in terms of your workflow, and then you're saving, in terms of the export and making it publicly available and sharing it, you're saving all your time and not having to do that part of it. It's pretty much automated.
Well, I'd turn it out to the rest of you. What do you think having that kind of information, like the garden-based learning page already has some, and I think a lot of us as educators have tapped into those articles that are referenced there, but would having something like this be helpful as we, defend kind of what it is that we do, when we talk to others about what we do, and then also as we're writing grant proposals? Question mark.
The other thing I would say, and this is definitely a conversation for all of you to have among yourselves, whether this would be an effective tool. You might want to think about doing it on a very small scale, like create just like a proof of concept for yourselves. Create a small, one folder with 20 references in it, and put it up and see what it seems to. Does it seem to work? And does it seem like you would want to put everything you're doing into this database? So you might want to start in a very small part of it. The other, and I sound a bit like an infomercial, except I'm not actually selling anything. The thing you can also do with the program, which is really nice, so for like grant-based programs, is once you get your references in here, then if you needed to, or if in any situation where you needed to share these references, so I'm just going to take these particular ones here. If I go create bibliography from items, and I'll just take APA, and then if I go into, so here's a blank Word document. Let me slide this over here. So I copied those, and then I just paste them in. So I've created, really quickly. And you could have an annotated bibliography if you want. But anyway, it's a list of your sources that you could include in an annual report or a grant project or whatever you want. So once the information is in here, it's really easy to produce formatted lists of all or some of those references. So it's another nice little part of the workings of the tool.
And on a limited basis, we could just start with what we already have on our garden-based learning site and change that from a list to this actual format as they did on the other website. Right? It might not be that hard.
It's not. I mean, and again, I think what I would encourage you to do, and I can help you guys do this if you want to, is take some of the, I think the thing that would be take the most time, and it really wouldn't be that much time, and it's certainly not particularly hard, is to take let me go back to your, so if I go back here, and if you're putting together these lists of evidence, and I'm assuming down, do you have like a bibliography of these?
No.
Okay. All right. So, the other thing too is you can, so you could create, these could all be, if you're putting these up anyway, and you wanted to make, they look like they're basically very well annotated citations, you could recreate that pretty easily. And the thing to first do would be to say, you need to get this article from Ratcliffe from the Health Promotion Practice journal on here, and this would be the only thing that would take a little bit of time. Is you would probably need to go. You could probably just do this. So there's the citation in Google Scholar, and I would just grab it. And bring it in. And so you might need to go a piece at a time and recreate your...
I think
So that would be the thing that might take a little bit of time. But how big is your library right now? How many, like 50 to 100?
Yeah, I don't think it's that big, but
okay.
what I think is happening is some educators might be, creating their own little pile of references, and we don't have an effective tool to share. And so if we had that tool, like, if you're doing something already, share it with the whole. I'm sure Jen has done a lot of research related to her pollinator project, and we don't have that in one place.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So I
looks
think
like
that
Jim does too. He's got a lot in there too. Like, I was like trying to look. Oh, look at all that stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's like
Right.
it's really easy to add. It's like then you're like, oh my gosh, and there's no, unlike like your front hall closet, there's no shortage. It's like, was there too many shoes in here? It's just like, nope. You don't run out of room. You just keep putting stuff in there, which can be a curse as well as a blessing, I guess.
Right.
So I mean, and the other thing too is if you've done all that, really, it looks like you've done great work with these annotations. So you could pretty easily copy these. So in addition to the basic citation information that you would import here,
you could add your own field.
You could add exactly. You could go into Zotero and put in. Let me cancel this. You could put in your own. So here it actually is the article. Let me get this a little more. Okay, so here's the article, and then so here's the citation over here, and then you could put it in, like in the abstract field.
All right.
You just copy and paste it in there. This would be it would be a really good project for like an intern.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And then you would just use a style on your website that would include the abstract, and it would kind of be there. It wouldn't flow as a narrative like this does. I mean, that would be the one thing, obviously, is this has a nice narrative flow to it. This would be more like citation abstract, but people can live with that, I suppose. So if you guys want to, talk among yourselves and see if that might want to work, send me an email. I'm around, and I'm happy to, help you get started. It's not particularly hard. There's a little bit of things to figure out, and I know everybody's really pressed for time, but I think if you're putting these things together anyway,
right.
Especially if you have this feeling that there might be other people out there who are also collecting this information, you could just add them if you wanted to. If you trusted them, you could add them as editors to the library, and then they could add to it, or they could just send you what they have, and you could add it as well. So.
Okay. We are kind of experimenting with something along those lines already in a small scale to see if that would work, because we are all working on the same things, and it's crazy to keep reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
And I know that initially there would be that big time outlay, but then in time it would become more and more efficient, and hopefully we'd see that on the back end when those resources are all gathered for us.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah,
and the other nice thing too is if you're putting this all this list of references in a essentially a database. So if your website changed, you're just pointing to this online site that's not going to change. So you could just link to it, and so.
Thanks. I think that was really helpful.
Sure.
To get us organized on that level, and basically, we're always eager to find ways to make it easy for people to explain why we are important.
Right. That's an ongoing, right. You guys know you're important, but.
Exactly.
Right. One of the things that we have, which I think is it is essentially a credibility checklist. I'm going to go back, and I'll show it to you quickly. And everything I'm showing you now is, it's open. It's an open resource, so you could either modify it and adapt it to your own use, or just point people to it. There's this section on evaluating credibility, which we teach this to undergraduates, and it seems a little simplistic, but it's amazing how if you just tell people, okay, so you pulled up a website, can you identify the author of this particular article and what is his or her credentials? Just by asking them to ask themselves that question, you realize most of the time they don't even ask that. They don't even say, well, it's like, oh, well, it's a website. It's like, well, who wrote this? And if you can't find an author, that's probably a red flag. And so you kind of go through and the authority, the currency, the purpose, the bias, the accuracy of details. And this is kind of a really kind of a mini thing that you could put this together in a little tip sheet and say, if you find a reference on the web, just do this 5-part checklist and see what you can do. If you wanted to go into more detail, UC Berkeley, let me see, I haven't looked at this in a while, see if the link still works. Yeah, their library goes through this in like extensive detail. So this is sort of the full on way to, and this is usually for evaluating credibility for web-based resources. It's not really so much for you were searching in a database and you found a scholarly article. It's more like you Googled the topic and you came across this. And it's just a way, you sort of keep it in the back of your mind. It's like, what's the authority? What's the purpose? When was this? Is there a list of references there? Is there a date it was last updated? There's little things there that exist. I don't know if that helps, but that's there. And you can feel free to borrow as much or as little of this. So if you wanted to create a little tip sheet for the public on this, and you included, here are 5 questions to ask in terms of credibility, and then you could add the tip that, and I think some people know this, but a lot of people don't, which is that there is there's an advanced Google search where if you go into this, you can actually, so it allows you to string your search together a little bit better, which is helpful. But the other thing too is you can actually go and search by specific domains. So, for example, if you were looking for compost, if I looked for compost and just did a Google search, I'm probably going to get mostly sites that want to sell me compost.
Correct.
Or something like that. But one of the things you can do, if I limited that to, just as an example, if I limited compost to .edu, you're mostly going to get, in this case, I'm getting either EPA or Cornell Cooperative Extension sites or the University of Missouri. So if I limit my search to an EDU, I'm going to filter out immediately the commercial sites that are selling compost. And you could also, you don't even have to send them to the advanced search. You could just say, you put in your search and at the end do site:.edu. If people get into the habit of just instead of throwing the net out in the lake and pulling back whatever they find is like, oh, why don't you throw out the net that will only bring back .org stuff or only EDU stuff. With visual resources, how to use those resources in a way that makes you safe and legal in terms of fair use and those kind of things. So that would, and I can, this is actually a subsection of a guide. Actually, I think this is actually quite useful. This is the one I was thinking of. Images, a guide to finding visual resources. So this is fully available, public. Anybody can get access to this, and it includes a section on copyright, what is fair use. The other thing you can do in terms of, if you're a staff member, if you're actually if you're Cornell affiliated, there's also, if you have specific questions, so this kind of gives you the guide and you can walk through this and it'll answer most of your questions. But if you had maybe a more specific question and wanted some guidance, there is actually there's a visual resources working group within the Cornell Library that would be happy to work with any Cooperative Extension staff members.
Those image databases we could freely use from?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're going to tell you, some of these are going to be subscription databases, and some of them are going to be freely available databases. I guess
If there's subscription, does Cornell have the subscription?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And so an educator could get access.
Yes, and so anything here, Cornell specific or not, like ArtStore is a database that you need to be affiliated with Cornell to get access to. But they have this whole section on Open Web, which these are all freely available. Anybody can get access to them. If you or anybody else has any questions, and then specifically about setting up the Zotero database, if you think you guys want to do that, I'm happy to get you started.
This has been a production of Cornell University, on the web at cornell.edu.